from a man who is so very close with Donald Trump that he is personally responsible for the court that may, in fact, be the final word on what happens to Donald Trump in this case and in every case. Let's hear from Mike Davis, the man who's in charge of the Article 3 project in Washington, D.C., and the man who, very humble guy, he wouldn't say it, but this guy, this person, got all of Donald Trump's judicial nominees on the bench, the Supreme Court. He was the guy who was bare-knuckle brawling behind the scenes to get us Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett. The great Mike Davis joins the program now. Mike, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Ben. How are you doing?
Donald Trump said, "Not guilty. Y'all got to feel me," and then hit, and then smashed the table, with his hand. Got into the Secret Service vehicle and grabbed the steering wheel from the Secret Service. Apparently.
Yeah, I mean, if he would have just went outside and carjacked a car or robbed an old lady or murdered someone, he'd be walking free right now. But because he dared to question an election, which used to be legal up until yesterday or 2 days ago, now he's facing 4 felony charges by Biden's Justice Department, Attorney General Merrick Garland and Jack Smith. So interesting times in Washington, D.C.
Interesting times indeed. Donald Trump did, in fact, plead not guilty to all these charges. We've been really covering just the breathless weakness of this indictment of Donald Trump. And we read through it and some of the finer details. They're going after Donald Trump for his retweets. They're going after Donald Trump for saying, stay peaceful, march peacefully, respect police. They cite those tweets. They leave out they edit Donald Trump's words. So Jack Smith effectively lies. And then he says that Donald Trump doesn't have the right to free speech. He doesn't have the right to free thought. But I'm not a lawyer, Mike. Perhaps there's some type of subtlety that I may be missing here, like a fine wine. Can you explain for us?
Yeah, Ben, you're missing the Trump derangement syndrome to the First Amendment to the Constitution, because the First Amendment that we've had in the books for 250 years applies to everyone except for Donald Trump. And so Democrats can challenge elections. They can, like they did in 1968, 2000, 2004, 2016. But when Donald Trump does it, it becomes an assault on democracy, and he should go to prison for this. I mean, this is just insane. I don't even think the Democrats even are taking this one seriously. I mean, I think all of this is lawfare against President Trump, whether it's Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, the Soros-funded DA's indictment of a former president for the first time in American history for the non-crime of a businessman settling a nuisance claim. And then you have Jack Smith, the political hitman and political Scud missile launched by the Democrats to take out Trump, indicting President Trump for the non-crime of a former president having his presidential records, which is allowed by the Presidential Records Act. Now we have Jack Smith indicting Trump again, this time for the non-crime of objecting to a presidential election, which is allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887, and twisting arms politically is allowed by the First Amendment. You're going to see Fulton County DA Fannie Willis, another deranged Democrat, also indicting Trump probably this month for January 6th for non-crimes. And then we have Tish James, the New York Attorney General, charging Trump with civil fraud for the big fraud of borrowing money from sophisticated banks and paying them back in full with interest. That's the problem is we have these deranged Democrat dumb prosecutors who are bringing their dumb lawfare against President Trump. This will almost certainly all get overturned by the Supreme Court, but the problem is that it's not going to get overturned before November 7th, 2024, and that's what the Democrats are doing. That's the same play Jack Smith ran against former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, a likely presidential or vice presidential candidate in 2016. Jack Smith brought bogus corruption charges against him. He was convicted. That was affirmed on appeal, and it wasn't until several years later that the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously 8-0 reversed Jack Smith's conviction of Bob McDonnell. But guess what, Ben? The damage was already done. The political damage was done. That's what they're doing here. This is lawfare. They fear they can't beat Trump on November 7th, 2024. And frankly, the only way that we're going to beat this lawfare for President Trump is putting him back in the White House on November 7th, 2024.
Can you game theory that for me? Because there's people in my feed saying that attorney generals in blue states could keep Trump off the ballot if he's a felon. They could prevent his name from being printed on the ballot. Is that a potential strategy here?
They could try to do that, but the qualifications to serve as president are laid out in the United States Constitution. I think you have to be like 35 years of age and have a citizenship requirement, and that's it, right? And so he could actually win back the presidency as a convicted felon sitting in a D.C. jail. And frankly, with Alvin Bragg's indictment of President Trump, Democrats won President Trump the nomination. With Jack Smith's indictment of President Trump for presidential records he's allowed to have, I think that helped President Trump barely win the White House. This indictment of President Trump for the non-crime of contesting a presidential election, I think, is going to help President Trump win back the White House by like 2 or 3 points. I think it's going to be a comfortable victory for President Trump, like George W. Bush in 2004, because I think the American people are seeing this. I know they are. If you look at the polling, they're seeing these criminal indictments for what they are, Democrat lawfare. And I think people resent the fact that Joe Biden and Merrick Garland think that they can have a D.C. prosecutor and a D.C. judge and a 95% Democrat D.C. jury and 99% Trump-deranged D.C. jury decide the next presidential election.
That is precisely what is going on here. Why do they hold the charges? Also, more importantly, there's this admission of guilt. This murder admission inside of the New York Times that was printed a year ago, where Joe Biden is fuming and demanding that Merrick Garland prosecute Trump for January 6th because he's a threat to democracy. I mean, the stenographers of the New York Times printed that, Mike, like as essentially as a confession, a blood confession.
Yeah.
That this was coming directly from Joe Biden. How do you not say that that's obstruction of justice?
Well, and how do you not have House Republicans impeaching Joe Biden immediately for his corruption? He's a compromised president of the United States, as evidenced by the tens of millions of dollars that have gone to every Biden except for the 5-year-old granddaughter they just acknowledged for the first time last week or whenever it was. How do you not impeach Merrick Garland for his obvious cover-up for his boss and politicization and weaponization of the Justice Department to go after Trump, Trump's top aides, Trump supporters, Christians praying outside of abortion clinics, parents outraged and showing up to school board meetings? This is the Justice Department has taken an ugly turn after during President Obama's presidency, and it is continuing and being ramped up dramatically under Biden. And the House Republicans need to find their backbones. I always say the DC swamp is the only place on the planet where the reptiles lack backbones. So House Republicans need to find their backbones. They need to start issuing subpoenas. They need to open impeachment inquiries. This is a zero-sum game. The reason that Biden and his goons at the Justice Department are getting away with this lawfare, the reason they're on offense is because they're not on defense, because House Republicans don't have backbones.
So you're saying that there's no way that the Supreme Court would hear any type of appeal here. There's no way that you could get around the court and assert or anything, go straight to the Supreme Court with this. Talk us through the game theory there for Donald Trump, because that seems less than great running for president from a prison cell in D.C.
Well, here's the deal. I mean,
less than optimal.
And that's the problem with this judge, Tanya Shukin, who is this Obama-appointed judge. She was a former public defender, so you would think that she would care about defendants' rights, but she doesn't. She only cares about being a Democrat operative. She has thrown the book at January 6th protesters, while D.C. has carjackings and murders and robberies at near record highs. That's the priority of the Biden administration and their Democrat judges on these DC courts. But the game theory is this: it's going to be hard for the Supreme Court to hear this case outside of the regular order. The Florida case, the Supreme Court may have an opportunity to have a crack at that because of the way the Classified Information Procedures Act is structured, where the government can actually seek immediate appeals on bad rulings when it comes to classified information. In this case in DC, I think it's going to be very hard to get this before the Supreme Court before a jury finds him guilty. The judge, this Obama judge, convicts him and sentences him. The DC Circuit affirms the conviction because it's all Obama stacked. And then what? The Supreme Court hears this 2 years from now after the presidential election. That's why it is so important that the American people, who I think are waking up to this lawfare, and you're seeing President Trump's poll numbers rise with each one of these indictments. How this is going to end is President Trump being put back into the White House on November 7th, 2024.
Wow. Mike, my producer is telling me that perhaps you have a phone that is on vibrate, that is within earshot of your mic. Maybe it's a vibrator. That. Nobody knows. We're not asking you any personal questions. We know that you do live inside of Hunter Biden's basement, so all things are possible. And so, would never want to embarrass you on a live feed here. Just that vibration is coming through loud and clear. So this is. I would
say this, Ben. The hookers and blow are the best in Hunter Biden's basement. So.
Apparently, he trashed his house in Malibu, and he stiffed the guy for like 3 months' rent. So. Just great dude, Hunter Biden. Really fantastic individual. So when you're looking at the landscape here, Mike, what is the chances of Donald Trump succeeding in getting this judge to recuse herself? We were shocked this morning when Kash Patel was on our show talking about this is the judge that took my lawsuit against the DNC and our discovery against the DNC for Russiagate. And she had to recuse herself because she worked for Fusion GPS, because she worked not just working beside Hunter Biden. That's one thing, okay? Not just working beside Hunter Biden. She worked with the DNC and with Hillary Clinton and with Fusion GPS in order to hide these documents. And she had to recuse herself, probably forced down from the top, on that case. How is it possible that this judge keeps this case?
Well, I mean, under the statute, there's certainly an appearance of bias here if she's recused on prior cases related to Trump, and she's been a lawyer for Democrats, as you say. That's a very good question. Here's the problem, Ben. You're talking about DC judges, right? And these are Obama judges. These are not people who let pesky things like the law get in the way of their power grabs and their political ends. And so, I seriously doubt she's going to recuse on this case. I seriously doubt that she'll allow a change in venue. And I seriously doubt that the Obama-stacked DC Circuit Court of Appeals is going to do a damn thing about this. Again, this is going to have to be resolved by the election on November 7th, 2024, because the Supreme Court will almost certainly not be able to reverse this conviction before then.
Wow. So Bob McDonnell was kept out of jail. Effectively, the Supreme Court flipped 9-0 to keep him out of jail and overturned Jack Smith's corruption conviction. And so Bob McDonnell, based on my reading, Bob McDonnell didn't serve a single day in jail. So I suppose we'll see Donald Trump hitting the campaign trail, even if he's found guilty here inside of this rigged courtroom. It seems like such a powerful play to working class Americans, to downtrodden Americans, to Americans who have been crushed by the justice system, sometimes wrongfully in this country. This seems like such a strong play to go into black communities and to say, hey, there is no justice here. I have felt the burden just like you have, and perhaps it's time for you to think about voting for me, and we can destroy this corrupt system together. That just seems like such a crystal clear, incredible campaign, speech, preach, like an MLK moment, where Donald Trump would be able to combine the downtrodden and say, there is no justice, actually. There are two tiers of justice. That white kid that kept shooting his gun and doing crack rocks and blow off a hooker's ass, that guy gets nothing, and your sons and daughters go to prison for mandatory sentencing that his dad passed. And then it's like I don't think they're quite aware of what they're doing to Donald Trump. They're turning him into Tupac.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it would be possible to make Donald Trump sympathetic to a broad swath of the American people. They're going to make Donald Trump sympathetic to a broad swath of the American people. You're already seeing that in the polling after Alvin Bragg's indictment and after Jack Smith's prior indictment. You're going to see it after this indictment. This is bogus political lawfare by Democrats who fear that Trump is going to beat Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom on November 7th, 2024. So they are doing the unthinkable. They are trying to imprison their political enemy so they don't have to face him at the ballot box.
According to some of the information being released from the court, Donald Trump is being released on the condition that he will not communicate with witnesses in the case except through the presence of counsel. He's also being told by the judge that if he violates the conditions of the release, an arrest warrant will be issued for him, and he will be detained, and that this is a routine warning. Trump is now signing paperwork at the defense table and swearing that he understands the conditions. Is this normal?
None of this is normal because they are indicting a former president of the United States and the leading presidential candidate for non-crime. So no, this is not normal. Now, are these pretrial conditions normal for every defendant? Sure, but this is not any normal case.
So the next hearing date is set on August 28th, 10 a.m. So they're going fast.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like I don't know if they're going to do another initial hearing on that date. I'm not sure what they're doing. I don't know if they did. I thought they did the arraignment today. Maybe they just did the initial hearing, and they're not going to do the arraignment until August 28th. I just haven't seen the order, so I'm not sure.
How do Republicans in Congress effectively fight this? Because, Mike, I got to tell you, we've seen a lot of strongly worded letters and tweets. Oh, man, if tweets could take down the Biden regime, we've seen them all. But there are, or X's, whatever you want to call them. But there seems to be absolutely, abundantly zero action.
Yeah, and that's a huge problem, right? We need to have Jim Jordan, the House Judiciary Committee chairman. I was a vocal critic of him for many years on the big tech fight. I praised him profusely after he sent the letter to Alvin Bragg when Alvin Bragg was politicizing and weaponizing the Manhattan DA's office to go after Trump and indicting him for the non-crime of settling a nuisance claim. But Jim Jordan needs to step up again. This is critically important. He runs the House Judiciary Committee with oversight over the Justice Department. He needs to haul in these key people and ask them. They don't need to ask about the ongoing investigation. They need to ask them how they went about making these decisions to indict, how the coincidence of Biden, evidence coming out on Biden, and then President Trump charged the next day on 3 different occasions now with the Mar-a-Lago raid, the superseding indictment, and now this indictment. And so there are a lot of questions that need to be asked about this, about the timing of this, about the communications that the Justice Department may have had with Biden or the White House or any other person outside of the Department of Justice. This just stinks to high hell what's going on here. And again, this is lawfare. This is a zero-sum game. If we do not have these Democrats on defense, they're going to be on offense. And they've largely been on offense for the last year since the Mar-a-Lago raid because we don't have them on defense other than the small defense when Jim Jordan sent a letter to Alvin Bragg saying, why are you using federal funds to interfere with the presidential election? I praise Jim Jordan with that, but they really need to step it up. They need to issue subpoenas. They need to have hearings. They need to get documents. They need to open an impeachment inquiry on President Biden for his corruption and his weaponization of his government, and Merrick Garland for weaponization and covering up the corruption. House Republicans need to get off their asses and move now.
Mike, I know you only have 30 seconds left, but real quick, are you talking about what it sounds like you're talking about is your 3-week reign of terror?
During my 3-week reign of terror, I mean, there's going to be so much payback when Trump is back in the White House. And I hope Democrats understand that they will be indicted, they will be fired, there will be hell to pay. Two wrongs don't make it right, but it makes it even. And there will be hell to pay when President Trump is back in the White House. I will make damn sure of it.
Baby, President Trump is on the move. We're seeing that motorcade right now. Mike, thank you so very much for joining the program. Everyone go to the Article 3 Project. Support Mike, his work. Follow him on twitter.com, where he absolutely throws bombs day and night. And we pray for Mike's reign of terror to begin as quickly and swiftly as possible. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Ben.